And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 48 of the Sling'N podcast. I'm TJ.
And I'm Kent.
And joining us tonight in the hot seat are two of the miscreants from Gunset Training Group, LLC, Scotty and Mike. Gents, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us on, guys.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, guys, being new to the show, we kind of like to start off every episode with our newest guests, kind of asking them a very simple question. So, Mike, we'll start with you. Why don't you tell the folks at home who the hell you are?
Who the hell am I? Who the hell am I? Well, hey, my name's Mike Kinsey, and I'm so glad to be here. I've been a fan of your guys' show for a long time, so this is definitely the highlight of my night. I'm looking forward to it. I'm just a guy. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. I've been married for 15 years. We have two kids, age 8 and age 6. I grew up around firearms, went plinking with my dad, but I never really had any formal instruction from him. He was Army infantry. But as I knew that I was forming a family, got married, and knew that as a husband, I was going to be responsible for some more things, that's really when I started to go down the road and learning some skills from a lot of highly qualified people that I'm proud to call mentors. We'll go down that road a little bit later, started about 15 years ago. But I work as a software engineer. I'm just a soft hands guy behind a keyboard and behind a desk. I really enjoy what I do. And I've been with Gunset Training Group now for about 1.5 years, and I'm just enjoying life and loving it, man.
That's awesome. Kent, you brought me another beat booper, bro.
I know. All the IT guys.
All the IT guys, man. That's the way it happens, right? Just let you know next time, for those of you listening at home, next time you decide to send that snarky email to the IT help desk about how you locked yourself out for the 18th time this week, just remember, we know shit. So, Mike, great to have you, man. Scotty, who the hell are you, buddy?
Well, hey, guys, I'm really pretty excited to be here. My name's Scott Cronin, and I been the training manager at a local gun store for about 8 years now, and I've been teaching classes through them. And a couple years ago, decided to start our own training company called Gunset Training Group. And honestly, we're just so blessed, man. I am not the traditional firearms instructor. I didn't come about this the traditional path. People ask me all the time, so which branch of the military were you in, or how long were you in law enforcement? And the truth, I actually went to seminary. My whole life, I was raised around guns. Firearms were like a gigantic part of my life. My dad literally beat firearm safety into me. And that's because when I was, or before I was born, when my dad was very young, his dad was accidentally shot by his brother and killed. And he was paralyzed and then ended up dying from complications from that. And, that one moment where it was just because of carelessness. It wasn't, it was couple young guys goofing around with a gun, and in the late 50s, and that one moment in time changed the trajectory of my family forever. I never got to meet my grandpa. My dad's life was obviously changed forever, and so my dad really hammered that into us, how important gun safety was. And so, but it was like our pastime. I always joke around about how we murdered a lot of beer cans off of fence posts with the old Marlin Model 60 that I grew up shooting. And the expectation of me, though, was that I think I was going to go into the military or something like that, follow in my family's footsteps. My brother served, and I think it was kind of the expectation of me. And I started hanging out with a rough crowd in high school. They were bad influences on me. Started taking me to church, and I ended up totally changing my mind in the 11th hour and decided I wanted to go into ministry. And so I went to seminary, and it only took me 7 years to graduate with a bachelor's degree, which is maybe a record. I don't know if anybody's keeping score, but I ended up working in churches. I worked in churches for about 12 years. I was a youth pastor. I was a worship pastor. And the problem is that it wasn't a real great fit for me. Mainly because they frown on you when you say the F word a lot, and the first church I actually got fired from because they found out I smoked a cigarette one time, and they didn't know that I was smoking like a pack a day at that point. But they found out I smoked one cigarette, and they were like, "We don't even know who you are anymore." And so obviously that was a little rough back then. And so I worked in a couple different churches and went down some different paths, and it just I don't regret any of it. I still go to church and still love what I do, but I ended up getting a new opportunity to become a police chaplain. And so I became the police chaplain at Miami Township Police Department. And that was an awesome fit. It opened up some really cool opportunities for me to kind of get a different perspective. And as a civilian, riding with law enforcement, gaining an appreciation for what they do and what they put up with, and the thankless job that they have. And then, I ended up getting trained up to do that. And that's a totally different skill set. And, when the chaplain gets called out to your house, you're probably not having a good day. So I get called out to suicides, overdoses, homicides, traffic accidents, things like that. And it's something I'm proud to do. It's something that it's a way for me to serve. And it's something that, it's a way that I can continue to give back to my community. But also it's opened up some interesting training opportunities. And the thing I found out was it's pretty hard to raise your family on a chaplain's salary. So I make $1 a year doing that. So I had to get a real job, and just so happened at like the exact same time, an opportunity opened up for me to work at a local gun shop. And so that's kind of how I kind of got into this industry. And it's almost been a decade now. I've been working there, and they needed someone to teach classes. And since I had been teaching in churches for so long, I love to teach, and especially on topics that I'm passionate about. So that's how I kind of got into this. I ended up getting some really amazing opportunities to train with some amazing people, and I just kind of became addicted to training and becoming a better instructor. And here we are a decade later, man. I love my life. I'm so blessed to train with people I've trained with and to do what I love to do. So
that's a really cool story, man. I'd like to put a pin in that, though. And come back around to that topic later in the show. I think there's some valuable information that our listeners would probably gain a lot of insight from. So if it's all right with you, I'd like to come back around to some of your experiences as a police chaplain. I think that's a fantastic and dare I say even a rare opportunity for exposure to some of those things and from a different perspective as well.
Sure.
So either way, guys, welcome. We're happy to have you. Kent, what is new with you, man? And we'll let you take it from there.
Me? Just taking and teaching the classes. That's about it. Winding down the rest of the year. We got some rifle and some pistol classes, and we're excited to be teaching those. And just got back from a class with Mike here that we can talk about. And, gonna teach some rifle stuff to end out the year. Yes, I can shoot a rifle too, just not very far or very well or very fast or very efficiently. No, but seriously, we got some personal defense rifle stuff coming up. So if you'd like to take a rifle class that doesn't involve a chest rack or body armor or helicopters, I'm your guy. If you need the chest rack, body, or helicopters, I don't fucking know. I can't help you with that stuff.
I want to point out, though, I'm really disappointed the helicopter idea fell through.
I would have signed up.
We were so close, Kent.
I would have signed up.
The insurance company just wouldn't handle it.
That's a staple for a level 2. Come on, Kent.
Yeah. Yes, it is. We can't fix a complex stoppage, but God damn it, we can fast rope. Why not? So, dudes, let's talk about Gunset as a training company real quick. And I like to ask most trainers what sets them apart and what they specialize in. And I happen to know that's a little bit of a different answer for each of you guys. So, Mike, what is it that sets you apart in the training industry?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, and I know certainly we're not the only ones here at Gunset that really try to specialize in this, but if we have kind of a golden rule, it's that I want to make sure that students are learning applicable skills. When you go to a class and you have an instructor You ask the question, why are we doing this? Hopefully, if you're just software engineer dude, if you're a soccer mom, like, hey, why are we really squaring up our stance on our platform? Hopefully the answer isn't going to be, oh, well, you know, when the rounds are incoming, they want to hit you right in the armor. You got to, and it's like, well, that's not really my world. Or, hey, when we're moving into a room, why are we doing it this way? Hopefully the answer isn't going to be for our audience, well, you know, you got 4 buddies stacked up on your shoulder and you're each going to dominate a corner. It's like, I'm not here with a team, man. That's not my world. So that's something that we really, really try to take pride in, and making sure that we know our audience and making sure that any skills that they're going to get from us and then go home and master and practice is going to be for their environment. The second thing I think really, you know, might set us apart, I don't know, but I'll put it this way. It's something that I'm very passionate about, is that, you know, Scotty has a fantastic story about why he wanted to become an instructor, and it dealt with an incident with his wife and his young child at the time. I'm going to let him tell that. Obviously, I got into this and became an instructor in 2007. I've been formally instructing people due to wanting to help people with personal defense, protection of family, all that stuff. That's at the top, bar none. But also, when I think about, you know, the safety of my children and the safety of my family, I really give a lot of thought to what is the world that they're going to grow up in and that they're going to have children in and grandchildren. So for me, really making sure that every single student that walks into one of our classes has at least a baseline bare minimum knowledge of what the Second Amendment is and what the gun culture has been in our nation and what it means going forward as it starts to shift a little bit. You know, most people that they could maybe quote parts of the Second Amendment to you, and they'll get to that part, well-regulated militia. Well, I'm here to break a lot of bubbles. That well-regulated in the parlance of 1791, 1776, well-regulated did not mean well-taxed or well-controlled or well-stifled.
It meant well-equipped.
It meant well-equipped. It meant well-trained.
Yep.
And because the people need the right to keep and bear arms for the security of a free state, I want to make sure that we're fostering a sense of community around us and fostering a culture to where we can be well-regulated again. Every single man and woman in this country needs to have a baseline of training and proficiency and efficiency with tools that can help protect and make sure that we keep going in the right direction.
So since you started the train rolling, Scotty, don't think I forgot about you. But Mike, do you want to give me like 2 minutes on the Minuteman thing?
The Minuteman thing? I'm sorry, give me a little bit more. Something. I got a lot of Minuteman stories. I'm just a huge history buff, man. I'm a nerd. I got bookshelf of Revolutionary War stuff.
Well, you were talking about the Minuteman concept of the average citizen and how we've gotten away from that. At least you were 2 weekends ago.
Absolutely. So I'm not sure how much people remember their 7th grade, 8th grade history, but my absolutely favorite time period throughout our nation's history is the Revolutionary War period, or War for Independence. And if somebody were to like nail me down and say, hey, give me one date, what's one date that really personifies what we are as an American people? I have to pick April 19th, 1775. So April 19th, 1775, it started the night before with Paul Revere, who started enacting an ancient phone tree to let everybody know that the redcoats were out. And it ended on April 19th with the battles at Lexington and Concord, which really was the catalyst to begin our war for independence, when King George decided he was going to send out a secret detachment to go and steal firearms and powder from our countrymen. I love the stories. I love the tactics. I love the feel of that history. But what really kind of keeps me up at night, man, is thinking about the people and trying to put my soft little, 2020 American brain into the heads of some of the folks that had to wake up that morning on April 19th with Paul Revere or their pastor knocking on their door saying that, hey, the regulars are out. The regulars are out. Grab your kit. And in under 5 minutes, grabbing your kit and start marching down a road, not knowing how it was going to end up. I named my son Parker after Captain John Parker, who was captain of the Lexington militia. And just knowing that him and 72 of his friends, and honestly, most of them were family. It was a real small town. So if you weren't related to somebody, you were in-law to them. And you're standing there in a line as you see 800 British redcoats, which is your own army. Everybody's British at this time. We weren't Americans yet, marching towards you in order to confiscate firearms. And he had the courage and the fortitude to stand there and say these words: do not fire unless fired upon. But if they need to have a war, let it begin here. And, you know, man, we don't have to take that too literally nowadays. Thank goodness we have a ballot box. We have the power of the pen and the First Amendment. But that's something that I want to pass on for my kids, knowing that, man, if there's going to be conflict, if there's going to be a conflict of ideas and voices out there and people parrying about what should America stand for, I want to be in that. I want to be in that conversation. I want to be raising my kids, knowing their history, and making sure that we're doing all that we can to protect it.
I like it. It's all too easy to forget just how hard of a day or hard of a time period that would be to do whatever you did the night before, the day before, right? You're, a cobbler, a baker, a pastor, whatever. You're out in the field hand, whatever. Then tomorrow morning at dark 30, you get up and kiss your babies and tell your wife, "Hey, I have no idea what I'm going into, but here I go." That's quite the history, and people sometimes take it for granted. Yeah. So, not that that's going to be too easy to follow, but Scotty, what sets you apart?
Well, no, I mean, I love that. One of the things that I think is really cool is in our rifle class, we talk about how important it is and how we believe that everyone should be a rifleman. And so I certainly follow along with him. For me, just to kind of echo what he was saying about our classes being applicable, we want our classes to be evidence-based. We want, and I know that's kind of a buzzword or whatever, but we want our classes to be based in reality. I almost shun away from anything that looks cool or flashy. We don't teach stuff like that. I want it to follow the rules of, does it work? Is it simple? Is it repeatable? Is it street proven? And if the answer is yes, then we're going to teach it. If the answer is no, we're not going to teach it. And so, we really want, our stuff to be based in reality and evidence-based. For me, I think the thing that maybe sets us apart and maybe a part of why we're successful as a company, because, we are a business, but we're not in this to make money. For us, it's a calling. It's a mission. And maybe that comes from my background, working in churches and stuff. But I mean, for me, I believe in this, and I think that's communicated. I shared this story earlier with Kent, but when, for me, becoming a firearms instructor, it was exciting to teach something I was passionate about. So it was exciting for me to teach something I believed in. But for me, the idea, it was mainly a cerebral concept, right? The idea that you might need to use your gun in self-defense. And it was something that I certainly understood could happen. It does happen all the time, but it'll never happen to me. It's a 1 in a million chance, right? And it's not 1 in a million chance. And, one of the things that we tell our students is that, honestly, it doesn't matter what the odds are that something's going to happen to you. And we do in our classes. We've looked at the crime statistics for the demographics in our cities, in our county, the communities that we live in. And I mean, like in the city of Dayton, you've got a 1 in 119 chance of being involved in a violent crime, which is defined as murder, sexual assault, rape, aggravated assault, or robbery. And so you got a 1 in 119. So I don't know that tomorrow it's going to happen to you. Obviously, there's certain areas of town that are certainly plagued by violence a little more than others, but that's not 1 in a million. 1 in 119, that's pretty significant. Yeah. And so, but then more than that, it's not the odds, it's what's at stake. And so for me, I live in a relatively quiet little town. We live across the street from the police station. We live 1 block away from the middle school. There's a park across the street. There's a big soccer complex. It's a nice little community, tons of trees and everything. Nice big sidewalks for people to walk on. And my wife, we've been married for 15 years also, and we had just had our first daughter. This was 8 years ago, our eldest, and she decided to go for a walk on a Tuesday afternoon at 2 o'clock on a sunny summer day, and she got 1 block away from my house, and she is the prototypical example of what happens under stress. She doesn't know what happened, where he came from, what he looked like, what he was wearing, but there was a man who assaulted her and tried to grab my daughter. And, my daughter was 3 months old at the time, and he tried to grab her out of the stroller. And my wife is 5 foot tall and weighs 100 pounds and has 0 physical skills, martial skills whatsoever. And in that moment, all she had was luck. And that was the only thing that saved her that day. And that is a horrible, terrible, hopeless feeling that I'll never forget. I'll never forget the panic in my wife's eyes or in her voice when she called me, because she was so spun up by the whole thing. She didn't even call the police. She called me, and she's running home, trying to get home. And this guy's chasing after her and screaming. And, it was just a horrible thing. It was absolutely terrible. And so, that feeling of being victimized, like I never want any of my students to ever have to rely on luck or hope. I want my students to be prepared, and I never want any of my students to ever be victims. And that's what drives us. It's what gets me up in the morning. That's what, gets me early to the range to put in work so that I can be the best instructor I can be. That's why I've spent an unbelievable amount of money. I've been accused of chasing certificates and stuff and things like that. That's not why I do this. The reason I do this is because it's my calling, it's my passion, and we have a mission as Gunset to make our students fucking dangerous. And I will not apologize for ever doing that. And I want our students to succeed and to thrive and to survive and to be victorious. And obviously we take a holistic approach to that. So we are all about situational awareness, avoidance, things like that, pre-attack indicators and cues and things like that. And we want to teach that holistic thing. But man, if your number gets called and it's your time, boy, I want it to be the worst mistake that dude ever made, because I never want anyone to feel what we felt as a family that day. And honestly, we were lucky. My wife was fine. My daughter was fine. But yeah, it was, that was a traumatic time in our lives. So,
well,
we ended up finding that guy a little while later. So that's a whole nother story though.
I would take great pleasure in knowing that he tripped in front of a train. That would just be fantastic.
Well, just to put a bow on that real quick.
Please.
My wife hadn't left the house for 3 days. And I tell the story in our classes as an illustration of like the fact that we live in a litigious society and there's laws and rules that we have to abide by. But 3 days later, she hadn't left the house. I'm like, look, let's go for a walk. I'm going to go with you. I'm going to show you that it's safe. We've never had any problems in our neighborhood. This is probably a transient person passing through. I'm sure it's fine. We got 1 block away from our house, and she froze, and she's like, oh my God, that's him. And I look up and I see this dude who is just all strung out, and he's leaning on this picket fence. He's leaning over and he's smiling at me. He's drinking a beer and he's just smiling. And I just saw red, right? Like I just immediately went to this real dark place where my plan was to walk across the street, drag him across that fence, and beat him to death on the sidewalk right there with my bare hands. Like that was my plan. It wasn't a great plan, but that was what was going to happen. And as I stepped off the curb, I literally, not figuratively, not exaggerating, I actually ran into a police car. He happened to be driving down the road. He was the officer that took the report. He saw my family walking down the road, drove up to see how we were doing. And I had tunnel vision, man. I mean, I just was spun up, and I ran into that corner of that police car. And so that particular individual was very well known to the local police department. And my understanding is he got tased a bunch of times. because he threw that beer can at the police officers. The police officer walked up just to have a conversation with him, and then they got into a tussle, and he got tased a bunch of times. So that made me real happy. And he got arrested. He ended up doing 18 months in jail for that. So yeah, that's the ending of that.
So for the listeners, right? Many of you know that, and many of you have children, right? And many of you know that both TJ and I have children. I've even lost a child. I'll be goddamned, man. That's just such a dark, like, you get me into a dark place real quick just telling me your third party story. But dare I say, out of such a terrible situation came a better mindset and a willingness to help others, and now here we are. So,
Sure.
you know, if you want to believe in divine intervention, which I certainly do.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Right?
I mean, there's no way that at that moment that I'm walking across, because like I said, and I share this detail in that class, in our classes, that, you know, who would have been at fault in that situation? Like, raise your hand if you think that guy deserves whatever he's got coming to him. And everyone raises their hand. I said, and who would have got arrested?
You would have.
Am I protecting my family? Am I helping my family at all if I'm in jail?
Yep.
You know, and so we kind of go through that, you know, that we need to have these conversations now before we get into those types of situations, so we don't make a mistake, so that we're responsible gun owners, that we hold ourselves to a higher standard, all that stuff. So yeah, lots of learning opportunities from that. And I'm just so thankful everything turned out fine. My, you know, Audrey is in 3rd grade now. She just, this is her first week of school. Man, she is beautiful and amazing. She's got a little sister, and, you know, I'm trying to raise them right. Tonight we were, you know, went out and trained some dogs, and I'm just so grateful. But I come back to this all the time, that the only reason that she's here is because we were lucky. It turned out he was a registered sex offender. He had a rap sheet a mile long. I have no idea what he was trying to do. I don't care. All I know is that I'm so blessed that they're still here. So.
And Scotty knows that my 8-year-old boy, Parker, he mentions Audrey every now and then when the families get together. Oh, hey, is Audrey coming by? But, you know, what a privilege we have as parents. Man, God bless you, Ken. But what a privilege we have, and a responsibility as parents, that how we can form our children's lives. Every parent knows, every mom and dad knows that our kids are our world. And I love seeing in our classes when a light bulb goes off, say it's our entry-level class, say it's a basic pistol or CCW class, and I mentioned some of the things that I do with my family, and I see mom and dads get the idea of, you know what, we can raise our children to be different. We can raise our children to have some situational awareness, to use some critical thinking, and to know how to peruse this world and walk through it. So for example, some games that I play with my kids is that whenever we go into a store, say it's wintertime, I love asking my 5-year-old, hey, Charlotte, point out to me everybody who's wearing gloves and you're going to get a point. So, oh, okay. She's walking around and she tugs on my shirt. That guy's got gloves on. That lady's got gloves on. And it's a fun little thing to do, but you know what I'm doing is I'm training her to watch hands. Why do we want to be watching hands?
They're the windows of intent.
That's right. That's the first place we need to look to see if somebody can hurt us. So, you know, I'm not going into that with my 5-year-old daughter, but I'm training her to be like, hey, Charlotte, anytime you see somebody wearing a hat, or anytime you see the color blue, just point it out to me. Or, you know, my son knows now, anytime we walk into a building, I imagine we all do this too. Hey, where's the nearest exit? Okay, cool. Where's the second nearest exit? And I don't even ask anymore. He just like points one, points the other, and I give him a nod and give him a high five when we go about our shopping or whatever it is that we're doing. So what a blessing it is to be able to pass on those types of things to our kids, but it also in our society today where people are just so, I don't know if it's being coddled for so long, or we've just been so blessed to live in such a safe environment for most of us for so long, which is an anomaly throughout world history and almost anywhere else on this globe. Man, to be able to put that spark into other parents' minds of things that they can be doing to help their family stay safe.
Yeah, we talk a lot about that in our classes, and that's one of the things that people ask us. Since we're dads, you know, since we're, you know, we've got families and stuff, how do we, you know, how do we approach these things with our kids? How do we pass this information on? how do we expose our kids to this stuff and still be safe, not take their innocence? And, I mean, and these are complex questions, and we certainly don't pretend to be telling you this is how you raise your kids, but this is how we do it. And if we can inspire you, man, that, and maybe we save those kids' lives someday because we start a chain reaction, where those kids are squared away and have good situational awareness. I mean, we can't keep them forever. My little girls are going to grow up and become women, and they're going to go off to college, where statistically, what is it, 1 in 4 are victims of sexual assault.
That we know, sadly, that we know of.
That we know of, and so that makes me sick as a man and as a dad. And, so we can coddle our kids, we can try to protect them from it, or we can make them hard, we can make them hard to be victims. And so, yeah, so that I think is really, that's our mindset, that's our mission, that's our goal. And we approach that from CCW classes, where we've got brand new people who've never seen a picture of a gun in a book before, or we, all the way through our advanced high level handgun, rifle, shotgun, whatever our classes are, our medical classes that we do. Yeah, it's something that, God, it gets me going, man. I'm all fired up. I want to go teach a class right now.
Yeah, same. It's one of the things that I'm going to ask this question to the group right now, because we're all, I'm raising a 10-month-old now. We're all parents, every one of us here. Am I the only one that, like, when I'm in a group of other parents and I start talking about stuff like this, I get cross eyes and, glazed over eyeballs and stuff? How do we do a better job of representing this in the space that's outside of our little echo chamber? Because every viewer on here and every person that listens to this is going to be going, right on, man, I'm 100% with you. But not every parent thinks this way. What are some ways we can do better to get this stuff out into the general population in society, if you will? Whoever's got something.
Well, I know one of the things that we've been talking about doing, and COVID really derailed a lot of our training plans this year. But, Mike and I have talked a lot about this. We want to begin not only teaching adults, but we want to start offering youth safety classes and firearm training opportunities where parents are required to come with them. We'd have some air rifles. We'd have them do some arts and crafts and design their own targets with balloons on them and go pop them on the range, teach them, the fundamentals of marksmanship and stuff like that. And so, we've been, trying to figure out a way to do that and to engage families, so that we're not just talking to, parents. I think you have to come at from different angles because, Mike, I feel like we both feel that we're ambassadors for a lifestyle, an armed lifestyle. And, for people that don't want to be victims. And so, I hope to inspire people. I'm not perfect. I don't think any of us have this parenting thing figured out. Maybe TJ does, but I don't.
No, not at all. Not at all.
So I know Mike is getting day by day, just screws. No, I'm just kidding. He's an amazing dad.
But anybody that would tell you that they have it figured out is full of shit.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's no manual. I remember when we brought our first home from the hospital, I was like, this seems like irresponsible.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be trusting me with this kid. But yeah, and every day I wake up and it's a new thing, every day is a new day. I've never had a kid who's 8 years old and this many months, my kids, are asking all sorts of questions. We were over, I train dogs. We do protection sports with German Shepherds. And we were over looking at a dog, and one of them was in her heat cycle. And, we saw a little bit of blood on the dog's leg. And I was like all super awkward. My girls jump in and start talking about, oh, she's just a girl. It's that time of the month. And I'm like, how do you know this? You're 8, apparently mom's been talking to them and having this, but it's all totally uncharted territory. Every day I feel like I'm just way in over my head. And I think that's okay. I think that's part of the journey. That's part of the experience. And so, when we have parents out there that are coddling their kids or trying to keep them separate from anything dangerous. I mean, I have people all the time tell me they never let their kids see their guns. They keep them locked up all the time. They never want their kids to see them and things like that. I think it's because they're just trying to be good parents. They're trying to figure it out. And so I don't know that there's an answer to that other than to continue to let that be part of your mindset, when you're teaching, to give it that holistic approach. I don't know. You know what I'm trying to say, Mikey?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, man, not just when you're teaching. I feel like, Kent, maybe part of your question, or if I could reword it, is like, how do you win people to our side? Maybe a little bit. And I give that a lot of thought. Scotty used the word ambassador. That's a word I would use. It's almost like we'd wear the same shirt or something, as lame as that is. Anyway, man, we need to be ambassadors as people that take this seriously. And yes, man, we want to be warriors and we want to be gunfighters and we need to have that hard mindset. But we need to have just as hard of a mindset about always seeking out and pursuing what is good and what is true and what is beautiful, and passing that on to just anybody around us. It doesn't have to be in a gun class. If someone ever, brings it up, and whatever the topic of the day may be, or, if it's about firearms or why do people have to carry a gun, whatever it may be, man, it'd be really easy to just fall into that social media snark and come off with a one-liner with some F-bombs. And man, I got some good ones. I just can't wait to whip those out and just slap somebody down and make them feel like they're not with it enough, but we can't do that, man. But we've got to be just as hard and just as diligent and determined when we go out to try to win hearts and minds, and let people know from the heart. I mean, we got to let them know we care about them. We want to try to build relationship. I love the people around me. I love my community. I love the other people that I meet when I go and visit our school. And I just want what's best for them, and to let them know that, hey, man, this is a broken, evil world, and there's just things that we need to do in order to be responsible parents. And here's some of the things that we do.
I'm taking recently so in the beginning of every class, I do a bit of a mindset talk, and it's never the same thing twice because I get bored with it. I'm taking recently to talking about defensive tools, defensive mindset, these skills, the hard stuff, et cetera, as an act of love. And that I know I got it from somewhere, and at the moment I can't remember who said it first, but somebody I was in a class with brought up the idea that carrying guns, shooting, training, med skills, physical skills, et cetera, were an act of love. Not in the traditional sense, but in the sense of we love our families so much that we do anything that we could to protect them. Thereby, we love them so much that we do anything that we could to always be there for them, right? It's an easy thought experiment when you make it about other people. It's not self-preservation so much as it is, not that there's anything wrong with self-preservation, but certainly for me, it's about, and even in my family, my wife does things that she wouldn't otherwise do, but she's not losing another kid either, right? She loves our little man with every ounce in her being. And if that means she's got to carry this goddamn tourniquet that annoys her, and if that means she's got to, strap a gun on and whatever, it's a bit of a chore, but it's also an easy sacrifice to make, which isn't really a sacrifice at all in the grand scheme of things. So I like you guys, and I like where your head's at. Let's get down to brass tacks a little bit and talk about what you guys offer. Talk about, which classes that you're teaching, who's teaching what. I understand Scotty's the rifle expert and Mike is the pistol expert. That's 100% accurate, right? I know. I did that on purpose. Sarcasm.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So you guys, and for the folks that don't know, Gunset is not just two people. So why don't you guys hit on all those points?
Yeah. So we offer kind of, like I said, a holistic approach to personal protection and personal security, and whether that be home defense or concealed carry. I don't mean to sound this negatively. We stay in our lane because that's who we are and that's what we do. We are expert civilians, or you're expert armed citizens. And so we don't teach you how to go and do a entry on a center fed room. We're not going to teach you how to go take a fortified position and hold it. And, we don't do that kind of stuff. What we teach is how can you get the gun between you and the threat as quickly as possible so that you stay alive. And so we offer a whole menu of handgun classes. That's certainly my specialty. That's what I've spent the majority of my time training on, and specifically concealed carry, concealed combat. And but we also understand that there are a number of different people that use rifles and shotguns as part of their home security plan, and so we offer classes in those as well. So for us, we kind of see it as a tiered thing. It's a crawl, walk, run type thing. We want to expose people to the right mindsets, the right attitudes, being a responsible, safe gun owner. We want to teach you solid principles, those foundational, essential elements to shooting, and then we build on that. And so from there, we continue up and we work on the more combative applications, where we get into the personal tactics and real world application of the firearms. And then, from there, stuff can get more interactive. And it's just a ladder that you climb. So we offer a number of different handgun classes. 2021 is going to look a little bit different than 2020 because, 2020 gave us a lot of downtime to think and analyze and figure out, what fits our mission statement the best. Mike is our lead rifle instructor, and I'll let him talk a little bit about that. Dave Hoptry is our shotgun instructor. Dave is an exceptional instructor. He's actually been with me the longest. He and I have been teaching together for a real long time, and he's a mechanical engineer, not military law enforcement background, and he is so approachable, and he's just everybody's favorite uncle, and because of that, he reaches a lot of people. There's a lot of times that I'll be working someone, they're not getting it. Dave walks over, says the exact same thing in his own way, and these light bulbs go off. And so Dave does that. Dave's also very passionate about revolvers. And so, next year we hope to be able to offer a defensive snubby revolver class. And my business partner, actually, me and Bill Kelly. Bill Kelly was a police officer for 16 years. He retired and went into the business sector and has been a successful business owner, and continues to. He currently works for. Am I allowed to say who he works for? Is that top secret?
Air Force. Yeah,
he works for the Air Force. We'll just say that, and we'll let it sound mysterious. But so he, certainly brings a different perspective than we do, and he has seen his fair share of victims. He certainly, aligns with us on our core beliefs, and so he's been an amazing partner. I said this the other night. I don't think we'd be where we are without Bill. Bill is he's our protector, man. He fights tooth and nail for Gunset and to keep us on mission, on task, and so we love him. And then we recently added another instructor named Rob Trisselli. Rob is actually one of our former students, and I love having him be part of what we do because he's our biggest cheerleader. I mean, he took his first shot with a rented gun that I gave him 6 years ago, and he had never shot a gun before, was so nervous about it. And no matter how hard I tried to get him to like Glocks, he ended up becoming a Walther guy. And so he shoots a Walther now. But he has gotten into competition shooting, like jumped in with both feet. He's taken 1 million classes and has really progressed as a shooter. And again, he's a sales guy. He works in metal treatment and things like that. And so I think our staff is made up of people who are approachable. They're everyday people who, and I'm not putting down military law enforcement. I love them, respect them. I think that there's a lot of great trainers out there. But for us, what we do, we're specializing in civilian carry. And so, that's what we do. It's what we do every day. It's what we eat, breathe, and sleep, that armed lifestyle out in the real world. And so, yeah, that's kind of who we are and what we offer. Anything I missed there, Mikey?
No, I think you about hit the nail on the head, man. So you want me to chat a little bit about rifles? Because, all right, so we do helicopters, tannerite, dynamic entries, all that stuff. I said, no, we're the fun class. So
I have a question for you on the rifle thing, actually.
Yeah, what's up?
I'm looping in listener questions that were asked before, and now they apply. So I'm gonna throw it at you. What does the everyday civilian rifleman look like to you? What are your standards?
Great question.
Fantastic beard, first and foremost.
Yep.
No, that is a fantastic
sticking out right there.
Man, so what does the modern rifleman look like today? First and foremost has to be mindset. You need to know what you stand for and why. How would everyone define a modern rifleman? Mindset. What is true to you, and what are you trying to achieve in your community, in your tribe? Bar none. Number two, man, you got to be proficient with a rifle. So not only proficiency and familiarity with controls and operation, but I like thinking of historical standards and what we had before us. Can I bore you with another Revolutionary War story?
No, do it, please.
So there was a man by the name of Daniel Morgan, and Daniel Morgan was charged in 1775 to form an elite corps of riflemen. At this time, the colonists were really just starting to get their act together. They were starting to put on the same uniform and stand shoulder to shoulder with their buddies and trade just waves of lead ball with the redcoats for about 30 paces or whatever it was. That's not how I'd want to fight. And they realized that that just ain't our bag. We need something else. So Daniel Morgan from Kentucky was charged with forming an elite corps of riflemen. So he put out a call to all the different colonies and said, hey, on this day, come with your own personally owned firearms, and you're going to take a test and see if you measure up. So far and wide, people came on foot, on horseback. They were hungry. They were tired. They put their names in a hat. Daniel Morgan would pick a name out one at a time. And while all these other men watch, you got one shot at a bucket that was about the size of a human head that was 250 yards away.
With your musket.
Well, some people had muskets, I'm sure, but man, you're not going to be very accurate with a smoothbore at 250 yards. So history doesn't tell us, but I know just from context that damn well all of them probably had rifles. And I guarantee you that anybody who made it had a rifled barrel, because there's just no way with a smoothbore. So that tells you two things. One, they were willing, mindset, right? Two, they were well regulated. They were well equipped. Those rifled barrels were way more accurate and way more effective than the brown vests that the redcoats had. And three, not only were they well equipped, those fuckers could shoot, man. They formed two companies in that one day of men. You'd hear Mike Kinsey, and I'd step up to the line, and I'd have one shot with my rifle to hit a target the size of a human head 250 yards away while everybody watched. So, could a lot of people do that today? Maybe if they've had a lot of training and a lot of practice, and they've got an optic, and they've got a bipod, and they've got a good prone position, and they understand what natural point of aim is. Man, they were squared away back then. So we definitely have a lot to live up to as a modern rifleman. And that's, a little bit of what we do in our class. We talk about what is a modern rifleman? What should our standards be? We have some standards that we do throughout the day just to give people a baseline and see how they improve upon. But we really should be as well equipped or better than what the standard infantryman is, because we're all riflemen. We're all Americans. So that's what it should be.
Well, that does it. You dudes that are coming to the rifle class in September, first thing we're going to do is put a drywall bucket up at 220. If you son of bitches miss it, you don't get your tuition back. So there. It'll be fine. It'll all be fine. It's interesting to listen to the context of I like the historical aspect. And speaking of history, we've got another good question about more recent history. So Sarah from Hold My Guns, shout out, best charity ever. let's define evidence-based a little bit, and let's talk about more recent history and data.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So we live in an amazing time where armed citizen gunfights are being caught on camera. If you look at the history of gunfighting, all the way back into, the Wild West and things like that, we've got all this documentation of what gunfights look like. But it's only real recently that we've really, over the years, you've seen a lot of money poured into research with law enforcement and military and what their gunfights look like. But concealed carry, legal concealed carry anyway, is relatively new. And so because of that, there's some people that are really doing some really interesting and really thorough research on what civilian gunfights look like. And, the one that kind of jumps to mind is John Correa from Active Self-Protection. 365 days a year, he posts a video of an armed conflict between two parties. And sometimes good guys win, sometimes bad guys win. And he narrates it. And, I don't think he's 100% right all the time. I don't think anybody's capable of that. But that's a fantastic place to start and to study, what do those gunfights look like? And you and Mike might be able to speak more to this too, but Tom Givens, that dude has been doing some research, and as far as I know, he's the only trainer that's really kept a database of his students who have been involved in gunfights and, detailed out what they looked like and how many rounds were fired, what distances were fired at, things like that. So those are the kind of things that we look at when we're trying to set up. We've got a class that we call CCW standards, and that is the standards that we feel like you should be able to meet as a CCW holder. And so we base those standards on a lot of that data, that modern data, a lot of crime statistics that are available through, there's the Bureau of Crime Statistics or something like that. There's I've got a link saved here on my computer, but there are resources out there that we've never had before, where we can look at more data and not just anecdotal stories, not just these things that this is how we've always done it, but like, what does it actually look like? I know one of the things that I was watching a little conversation with John Correa the other day with somebody, and he was talking about carrying a knife and a firearm at the same time, and how in all of his 10,000 videos of armed conflicts that he's watched, he's never seen anyone who had a gun use a knife in that same conflict. And that was just an interesting conversation that I guess I hadn't thought about, because most people that I hang out with run knives, for retention or something like that. And so it just kind of got me thinking more about that. So that's something that's good. I'm going to go down a rabbit hole probably this week and be doing some research on that. But we're constantly evolving. We're constantly trying to look at that data, make sure that everything that we're teaching is current and fresh. And so for us, most of the standards that we have set are not extreme distances. Certainly there are times when we've seen, people have to make a 40-yard shot for some reason. But that's an outlier, right? It's pretty hard to justify a self-defense shooting at 40 yards. So most of our things are at conversational distances, the length of a car, a car, parking spot, something like that. Those are that's the world that we live in as civilians. And so that's where our classes kind of focus on those realistic scenarios. We try to teach a draw stroke that works in every situation, whether you're seated behind a booth at a restaurant, behind the wheel of your car, you're standing up. We teach one draw stroke, that upside down L. And that's why we teach it that way, because we want it to be simple. We want it to be repeatable. We want it to be, something that's going to work in as many situations as possible. So, yeah.
And I think in addition to all those statistics that, it's really important for folks to hear when they're just getting started about the average, self-defense being under 3 shots and under 3 seconds and 7 yards and in, that kind of stuff. It's fantastic. We have that at our fingertips. I always highly recommend folks, when you're asking this evidence-based question, it's important that we know our history. We know that there's a lot of people getting in a lot of gunfights over the last couple hundred years, and that information's out there. So reading up, what Colonel Cooper had to say and books that were being written in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. I've got a bookshelf of them. I love going through that stuff, and we can learn a lot. Why does a stance look like a stance today that looks like this?
Sure.
Or
And I was reading something the other day. I was talking about Wyatt Earp. He had there was a documented case where he dropped a gun and it went off, and they were making a case for round in the chamber has been around since back then. So yeah, I mean, I think that we can look at a pretty massive body of evidence to look at with those gunfights, because there really is nothing new out there when it comes to that sort of stuff. You have a firearm and you want to stay alive, and someone's trying to hurt you, take from you, something that belongs to you, or take your life, or whatever the situation is, and this is how it played out. One of the videos I watched a million times that just broke my heart was that church shooting in Texas. I think it was Texas. That just happened not too long ago.
White Settlement, Texas.
Yeah, with the dude with the shotgun. And, I got out the timer, and I timed how long it took that guy to go for his gun and to get it out. And it was right at 3.5 seconds. From the time he started his draw stroke, fumbled around, tried to get his gun out, he got it to about here and took a shotgun blast to the chest. 3.5 seconds. I mean, that's a lot of time. And with a little bit of training, maybe he'd still be here. And I'm not trying to put him down. That man, God bless him. He was trying to do what was necessary to put himself in harm's way to protect his family and his flock there at that church. That man is a freaking hero. But man, that was really hard to watch. And so that's when we say evidence-based, that's the sort of stuff that we're looking at.
If that gentleman had taken mine or yours or about 6 other dudes on this chat's training class, you'd probably still be here.
Yeah. I
mean, let's just be real, right? None of us, and just for those of you playing the home game who aren't firearms instructors, a 3.5 second draw stroke is not acceptable for concealed carry circumstances. I'm sorry, it's not. But then you don't have to have a .86 either, and there's such a thing as reaction time, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
No, we actually require .86 draw time. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, then I failed. I got a .87, maybe.
Nope. Yeah, you won't make it in our standards.
I'm not going to make it. Yeah, see? But seriously, though, the white settlement thing, that's such I don't want to get down too far a rabbit hole on this, but the guy that was the hero with the 357 SIG,
Jack
right?
Miller,
that gentleman made what, a 17 to 20 yard shot?
Headshot.
On a moving target, one shot.
Well, and I watched an interview with him, and he was talking about the reason he took that headshot. So he's a firearms instructor, and he was talking about how he never teaches headshots. Center mass that's what he teaches his students. But that shot was not available to him because somehow, in the middle of the most stressful moment of his life, he did not have tunnel vision, and he saw parishioners standing up and getting in his battle space, and he did not press the trigger. When he was about to take that center mass shot, he moved his sights to the head and took a headshot. That dude should never have to buy a beer again.
It's amazing. In just a 30-second video clip like that, all the lessons that you get. I watched that video 6 hours straight right after that incident happened, and I just made list after list after list, like, oh my goodness. And whenever the fight was done, after that man's man took his headshot and ended it, how many other people came rushing in and muzzled everybody in that because they didn't have a good ready position.
Everybody got a muzzle.
After he muzzled, the entire congregation came around, and he did good. He covered the bad guy on the ground, made sure he wasn't a threat. And you know what I saw him do? If you go back and look at the video, you saw him. He look at the gun, he'll look around, he'll look at the gun, he'll look at the round. He takes the gun in his dominant hand, puts it under his armpit so he can pull his phone out. And because he was probably the guy calling 911, you see him in the phone. I'm like, why would he? You know what? I don't know, man. I don't know. But I'll bet you anything, he had a collapsible holster, and he had a phone, and he couldn't reholster one-handed. I'm just betting. I don't know. It's just all these little things that you can pick out if we're a student of this stuff. It's amazing.
Yeah, it certainly is interesting.
Well, so I mean, there's also the the premise that the most the highest probability of somebody having a negligent discharge comes at 2 times, on the draw and on the reholster. You should be quick on the draw. We all understand that. That's certainly been talked about. If the threat or the situation is arguably neutralized, you got all day to reholster, man. If you know that tucking it underneath your arm is going to maybe not the best option, but if it's going to free up your hand to do a task that's more important, like getting on the phone with emergency services, then do it. You got time to reholster after your things start to calm down and that adrenaline dump finally happens. Then you can take your time and do it safely, especially if you're wearing a gun on the small of your back.
Yeah.
Those of us that carry appendix or strong side, we can at least look down and see our holster. So collapsible or not, you can't see it. It's a safety issue.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why we certainly advocate certain types of carry, certain types of holsters, things like that for those exact scenarios. I have gotten into this a bunch of times with a bunch of people. I personally advocate the skill set to be able to holster your gun one-handed without looking. It's not ideal. It's not what I want my students to do in day 1, or day 2 or day 3. But there are scenarios where I can't take my eyes off what's going on, and I need to be able to know how to holster that gun safely. There's a method to it. There's a safe way to holster your gun one-handed. Man, I get into arguments with people all the time about that. And like, if you're teaching that you need to holster the gun safely, look the gun in the holster the whole time, like I don't get wrapped around the axle on that. But it's another opportunity for us to have a discussion about, continue to evolve our training and figuring out the best ways that are reality based, by looking at real world situations. And does this make sense to teach our students this stuff? Is it an outlier? Because I'm the guy who, if I'm involved in a shooting and I'm probably keeping that gun on my threat, I might be behind cover, whatever it might be. I might be trying to, evacuate the danger zone, the battle space, whatever it might be. I might be setting that gun down for a minute, just setting it on the ground and taking a deep breath. But, the point I think Mike was making was when he put that gun under his arm, he stuck the gun right back and pointed at everyone behind him. And again, I think his finger was on the trigger too the whole time he did that.
And just worrying about a piece of your shirt or material getting in the trigger guard.
Now, how would we do under that situation? Would we do better?
I'm not calling anybody out because I probably would have wet my pants 3 times by then. I'm not calling anybody out. Who knows? But it's a reminder to all of us that this is a journey and there's never a destination. And no matter how skilled we think we are, there's always something else to tune up and tweak and get just a little bit better at.
Yeah.
If you want to find out, I'm sorry, go ahead, Scott.
And I'm always learning that there's better ways to do stuff. And if something like that happens, I think that's the mark of a good instructor, is, when you are approached with something that you've held to be true, and then someone else comes along and has something better, you have to be flexible. Tom Givens is how old? 67 years old?
105.
I knew you were going.
And yeah. Which side did he fight for in the Civil War? Anyway, so Tom Givens, we love him. Tom Givens has always advocated an outboard manipulation of the slide, right? And that's one of the things he's big on. And he recently took another class and learned inboard manipulation and worked on it. And I was kind of interested to talk to Tom and see what he thought of that, because I knew when I tried to suggest inboard manipulation, he was, he was the teacher and I was the student. So, it was what it was. But when he was the student, I got to talking to him and he said, I think that works and that makes a lot of sense. And if I'd been taught that a few years ago, I probably would be teaching that today. And that blew my mind. This dude's been doing this for 50 years. And here's a guy who he's earned the right to teach it however he wants. And no one's going to argue with him, even if you disagree with him. And here's this guy continuing to learn, continuing to be open-minded, and continuing to, pick up new stuff at 67 years old as a guy who, I mean, he's one of the godfathers as far as I'm concerned, and I that made me respect him so much more.
Yeah, I get really nervous when people just cling tightly to a dogma about this stuff. And you know what? It doesn't even get me excited to think of it that way. What gives me the fizz is knowing that there's some art to this. I mean, yeah, there's some science, but there's some art to this, and you got to have a passion for it. And man, we're all living, breathing, biomechanical problems standing here, and we've got maybe 25 of them on the line at the class, and figuring out, especially when you start talking about some rifle field positions, what do you need to do for your body type and your experience and maybe past injuries, helping people do that problem solving so that they know that they have what they need to do the best that they can if their number gets called. That's why we do it.
Did you say it gives you the fizz?
It does give me the fizz. Yes, it does. Sometimes I talk like I'm a 6-year-old man.
Nope. Hashtag t-shirt idea. That's happening.
Yeah. See, every show we get a t-shirt idea. So thank you for that. So the point I was going to make was, if you want to know what you will do under stress, get out and do some force on force.
Sure.
And watch the goofy, nonsensical horseshit that you'll do with the gun in your hand that you'd have sworn to God, you'd be, I would never. Yeah, that stuff, Scott.
They're
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. You're running away screaming mommy as you're turning the gun upside down and shooting in the general direction of the. Yeah, that stuff.
Yep.
It happens.
I did a force on force training, and afterwards I started doing a lot more one-handed work because I found that I was doing this stuff a lot.
Right.
Yeah. I was like, maybe I should maybe I should work on that, since that seems to be a natural reaction.
Well, it's like Mike Tyson says. Yeah, it's like Mike Tyson says, everyone's got to play until they get punched in the face.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
that was good, TJ.
that was nice. That was nicely played.
You're welcome for that. Yeah, force on force training is that proverbial punch in the face.
Oh, two. Can you get a third faith in there?
Yeah, you just have faith in me.
Oh my God, Jesus Christ!
I am on a roll tonight. That is.
The ad read is going to be really terrible when we get 0 text messages saying we want to have part in the ad read.
Especially when if I keep talking that way, my face will get stuck, and I'll be reading the ad read with a lisp. That's.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. Anyway,
I've taken force on force training weekends. Some of them down at Tactical Defense Institute, which we were talking about before the show started. But I took one with my wife. And, there's a lesson in this. I love it. And it's one of her favorite stories. She hasn't had too much firearms training, but some. One of the scenarios was that she's sitting on the couch in the force on force house, and a bad guy's going to come down the stairs and go. She didn't know any of that. But every single person that she shot in that house was right in the crotch. Everyone was a dick shot. I tell you what, because I don't know if it was just they were carrying the gun, her eyes went low, and she saw the gun in the hand like being down because they weren't presented yet. But every single person she shot was right in the crotch, and I was so proud and a little bit turned on. It was what a great weekend.
That's awesome. I got to witness a couple weeks ago a young lady who is a very skilled tool user. Right, she's very good with a handgun in the live portion of class. But during the force on force, she seemed like a little timid, right? And the gentleman who was teaching the class said to her, "All right, real quick. So for this one, your kid's in the car." She doesn't even have a kid, but he tripped the mama bear instinct, and mama bear rode homeboy to the ground while driving the gun into his temple, and emptied it into him, and then took his and kept shooting him. I was like, "This is amazing."
Scenario.
She stood up and she looked, and so I'm back there on the observation line with her boyfriend, and he's like facing me, and we're talking about training and stuff, and he's watching my eyes, and he goes, "What?" And he turns around and he goes, "Yeah, that's my girl." I'm like, "Yeah, that is your girl right there." She just.
And you need to be scared of your girl.
Yeah, no shit. You trip that mama bear instinct, they'll do some crazy shit.
The only words out of yes, ma'am.
Yeah, for real. Real.
Have you guys done some force on force training?
Yeah, GMD is not. I'm not currently offering force on force myself, but as a student, yeah, absolutely.
It's you're right, man. I mean, it's like nothing else. I got to participate in a force-on-force exercise with one of our local hospitals. They wanted to put on a active shooter situation, and so a bunch of local law enforcement agencies, state highway patrol, sheriff's department, things like that. They decided to do first officer on scene drill, and so we set up a scenario where we had 100 different actors, role players. We had makeup and moulage. There was blood all over the place. It was really intense. So it's this wing of this hospital. It was like an office building, but next to the hospital, but it looked like a floor of a hospital. And so that officer's outside. We have a radio. I'm inside. I'm the bad guy, which is awesome, except you get shot every single time.
But don't you learn though when you're op 4 and force on force, you learn every time.
You have such an advantage, and man, I mean, you get all these reps, and so I by the end of it, I was ready for the real thing. Let's go. I mean, like I was feeling real cocky, but for whatever reason, this scenario, we were going full on Hans Gruber. I had a full auto MP5 with sim rounds in it. And it was the most fun I've ever had in my life. And so I'm in the back with my safety officer, and he's got an M4 with blanks in it. And so he's cranking off blanks in the back, and I'm just screaming, "I'm gonna fucking kill you!" Just screaming, and like all the actors are screaming, "Help me! Help me! He's that way! No, he's that way! Oh my God, don't leave!" You know, they're grabbing a hold of the officers as the officers are running in, and like the officers have no idea what's going on. They just hear the gunshots going off in the background. It's just absolute anarchy and chaos. It was amazing training, and the officers had to navigate that, get to the bad guy, engage the bad guy, stop the threat, and the debrief afterwards was, I think probably the best part about it was for the first time, a lot of these guys really had tunnel vision. I mean, they really had auditory exclusion, where I'm standing next to them, shooting at them, screaming their name because I'm reading it off their lapel, because they all have masks on, so I can't see who they are. So I'm just screaming at them, and they're like looking at a mannequin because they like had tunnel vision when they came in the room, and they're like totally engaged on that mannequin. And just to see the effects of stress in that situation was, you read about it and you study it and you research it, but to actually go through a training like that, to see it actually happening, man, it totally changed the way that I teach. It totally changed the approach that I feel like we bring with our training. Yeah,
it's valuable for sure. Do you guys offer force on force or no?
Oh, no, not now. That's one of the things that I certainly, it's an ambition of mine, is to get certified as a simunitions instructor and to be able to offer that. We've talked about it's probably more realistic to do airsoft training. It's a lot more, affordable and practical. And I think Bill, as our CFO, would appreciate that. And so it's one of the things that we're definitely going to hopefully offer in the future.
Yeah, it's eye-opening for sure. I really enjoy it. So let's talk shotguns for a little bit.
Oh, baby.
Right? You were just out as a student, I believe, taking a shotgun class.
Yep.
Are you going to pick one up? Are you reaching down for one?
I had it right here just in case you asked.
Oh, of course you did.
It's my baby.
Oh, what you got there?
All right, so she's clear in case anybody on the internet's worried about that. This is the Gunset shotgun right here, baby. So this is my Beretta 1301T.
Yeah.
I've kind of been slowly, as my budget allowed me, doing the Aridus Sling'N mods. So I just got the Sling'N stock adapter for it, and just picked up the Crom. I did get the Rob Hot mount mod for my rear aperture sight. I decided to go with the Holosun. This is the new V2 507. So it's got that EOTech style reticle, which works real nice. So yeah, we picked these up from a gun shop. Actually, it was in Tennessee. These were law enforcement trade-ins, and they still had the tags on them when we got them. So they were not ever fired. It was amazing. I got them. I think we paid like $600 for 3 of them. Well, $600 a piece. So it was a pretty stupid deal.
Somebody needs to call the cops because you just stole those.
I know. I couldn't. That's why I was calling my friends. I was like, I'll get as many as you want. How many do you want? So yeah, we ended up buying 3 of them.
Next time that happens, the answer is all of them, and I will drive there tomorrow.
I really should have. I think they had 11. We bought 3 of them. But I have become such a gigantic fan of the shotgun. I think the shotgun is it's become, I don't know, out of vogue or whatever. Everyone wants to do the AR stuff when it comes to long guns. And listen, me and Mike go round and round, okay, on this. I understand the benefits of the AR platform. I think it's solid. It certainly has its space. There are a lot of advantages. But when we're talking about shotgun, 25 yards and in with the right ammunition, and for me, the right ammunition is Federal Flight Control 8 pellet. That's what patterns perfect out of this particular shotgun. Man, I'm very confident in this gun's ability to end gunfights. And so this class that I just did this past weekend was with Bucky Buchanan. He's a police officer and a SWAT cop, 25-year SWAT cop. And this class was significantly more tactics heavy, where a lot of the classes and even like our shotgun class that we offer is a lot more just about how to run the gun, how to reload, working on, how to operate the gun safely and dispelling a lot of myths about shotguns, giving you an opportunity to pattern your shotgun with your defensive load and seeing its limitations and helping you understand, the right way to employ a shotgun and what its purpose is. This class I took this past weekend was, man, we were shooting in awkward positions. It was stuff like, real stories that he had, like, hey, you just heard a noise in your backyard. It's coming from your barn. You walk outside with your shotgun and a dude comes out and he starts throwing rounds at you and you have to drop to the ground, go prone and put rounds on target at 25 yards. I've never shot a shotgun prone before, and all my training, I've done tons of AR stuff, but to drop down with your shotgun, go prone and have that recoil flexing your collarbone inside, like that. I mean, I've never done anything like that. We were going like behind barricades and working, dropping in on angles and stuff. We weren't pieing corners, man. We were taking angles and engaging around door frames. I mean, the whole thing was home defense. That was the idea of this, property and home defense, and understanding what your shotgun's capable of, what its limitations are. And I mean, man, I am in love with this shotgun, and it is absolutely, for home defense where I'm at, it is my number one choice. I would pick this thing up over an AR any day. I mean, I feel really confident in what it's capable of.
Yeah, I think really we need to first start talking to, like, what is someone's plan? But whenever we get a new shooter and someone comes to me and they're like, hey, home defense, what do I want to buy? What should I get? Handgun versus shotgun versus rifle. I'm like, well, what's your plan? And typically they don't have one yet, and that's okay. I get it, but we'll help you work through that. I'll tell you what, man, if your plan is you don't have kids in the house and you and the wife can hide behind the bedroom bookcase, behind a locked bedroom door, turn on exterior lights, and she's on 911, and you just got a shotgun pointed at that bedroom door waiting for the cavalry to come.
Which honestly is a great plan.
That's a fantastic plan, man. A shotgun is absolutely the right tool for the job there.
Mike, and you bring up this is a fantastic point. I know that's a point that Kit and I have both agreed on here. It's a solid foundation, right? You have to take everything based on your circumstances in your house, as you mentioned. I want to hearken that response or that question that you start with, what's your plan, back to a topic that we touched on earlier. And that was, how do we be good ambassadors? How do we approach those fellow parents and, adult friends that we have that might not be on the Second Amendment train, right? If those of us, the panelists here on the show included, if any one of us and the listeners at home, if any one of us goes to somebody who's not on that train yet and start going, hey, man, what's your draw time? What's your 1 hour one time? Have you engaged a target at a headshot at 50 yards while standing on your head? You're going to freak them out.
Sure.
If you start that conversation with, hey, what is your plan? Instead of trying to convince them of anything right off the bat, find out what their baseline knowledge is and what their stance is on things. You'd be surprised the amount of interest and engagement you get from somebody that's still on the fence when you start leading them down that path of their own thought, and especially just start laying down the track a little bit. Like, hey, what is your plan? Oh, you're going to call the cops. Well, did you know that the average national response time for emergency services is 20 minutes?
Sure.
How bad can things get in 20 minutes? Take them down that path. It's a really good method and approach.
100%. We keep saying that we start with mindset, and man, that's why we do it. We're going to keep saying it. We believe in it so much. You mentioned, what's your draw time or what's your presentation method? You can get someone really distracted when they're new if you just start talking about skills, and that's it. Mm-hmm. And similarly, you can get someone really distracted when they're new, only talking about gear. Oh, well, what kind of sling should I have, or what kind of sights or optic, or how do I carry my shotgun reloads or whatever it is.
And we as Americans, we think we can solve most problems by throwing money at it, right? So the more expensive my gun is, the better shot I'm going to be, the better, the more capable I'm going to be, things like that. And for me, again, it all comes back to reality, evidence-based training. The latest statistic that I actually just saw this not too long ago was that nationally, the average when it comes to specifically violent crimes, the average response time, 1/3 of all violent crimes that happen in which a 911 call is initiated, it takes between 11 minutes and 1 hour. So you could be potentially on your own for 11 minutes at the minimum, up to an hour. And we're talking about rural America and things like that. And so when a lot of people say, well, my first thing is to call 911 and, the police will come and that's why I don't need a gun. When you start to actually introduce logic and facts, and there's a way to do that without being arrogant or, poking holes in people's, plans and things like that. Because I think a lot of people think, oh yeah, I got this figured out. If something happens, I'll call 911. I'll square up and, go fisticuffs if I have to. When you actually start seeing what the average looks like, and are you going to be average or exceptional? What's your particular home invasion going to look like? Is it going to be the outlier, or is it going to be, the one that we see most common? Now all of a sudden people go, oh, okay, well maybe that plan doesn't work, and maybe there's a different solution, and that opens up that conversation.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but how to be an ambassador? I think it's just asking questions. Let people know you care about them, you care for them, you want to help them work through it. And I'm a big fan of the Socratic method. Just ask them honest questions and see where it goes.
Sure. I mean, as a, my full-time job now is, working full-time in a gun shop, and we're not a huge gun shop. We certainly, we have about 1,000 guns on hand when it's not 2020. Normally, now we have about 250 guns on hand at the moment. But when people come in, one of the things I teach our staff is listen. Ask questions and then listen to the answers. When someone comes in, they want a gun. What do you want to use that gun for? And, a lot of times they go, well, I don't know. I mean, I want it to protect myself. Well, are we talking about concealed carry? Are we talking about home defense? And then use that information that they give you to ask more questions, have conversations, and begin guiding them down a path where you can give them information where they can make a good decision. I never want our gun shop to be that prototypical gun shop where well, you know what you need right here? I got this thing right here. This is all you need for home defense, because this right here might not be the answer.
Well, it's also got a really long barrel and not a pink handle.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not a Taurus Judge, which is always the right answer. So,
boo, hiss.
So
I sold 3 of those this week.
What's funny is
despite me trying to talk about this.
He sold all 3 of them to me.
and you threw them in the burning dumpster fire. That's a bad idea.
No, I keep them on me at all times.
I keep that thing on me.
It was a public service. He was buying them back so nobody else would.
Yeah.
Do that New York reload.
No shit. So I've been getting this is something I wanted to ask you dudes. I've been getting a lot of older folks lately coming to this, and to tell a cool shotgun story. my recent convert to AI life, Justin, and I got to shoot a Smith & Wesson Model A3000 shotgun that's only about 30 years old, because that's what old boy had for a home defense shotgun, right? And Justin found out that isometric push-pull works on things with wooden stocks, and he was amazed. He was like, "Oh, this doesn't suck." And I'm like, "Yeah, it doesn't have to suck." But have you guys been getting the older crowd coming out?
Our demographics have been so diverse. You know, where we're at, you know, we're in a, so our actual class location is fairly rural, but we're drawing a ton of people from the rural communities and from the urban communities. They literally cover every range of the spectrum. Black, white, Indian, you know, Latino, Hispanic, young, old. We've got, you know, people, it's their 21st birthday and they want to get a concealed carry, and the little old lady and, you know, or her husband, you know, it's honestly, it's been wonderful to see that happening. It's absolutely been wonderful. It's, again, we see ourselves as ambassadors for this type of lifestyle and for, you know, a strong Second Amendment. I usually give a little thing where I talk about how I think that the Second Amendment, you know, it should not be a partisan issue, that it is something that is beneficial specifically to marginalized groups in our society. Like, that's what the Second Amendment is for. And so, you know, I get on a soapbox for a minute and talk a little bit about that. But yeah, we've seen a lot of people, and it's been a challenge. You know, it's been a struggle for people who have grip strength issues. And, you know, honestly, you know, when you get to a certain age, you don't have the elasticity up here for learning new concepts and stuff. I've seen a lot of older folks who've been unsafe, and we've had to take special care and things. So it's taken a little bit of planning and strategizing. It's something that we're constantly evaluating and figuring out the best way to do this. You know, our classes 5 years ago looked very different than they do today. And
amen to that.
Yeah.
Real quick, if you took a class 6 years ago and you went back and took it again and it was the same class, that's a clue in the wrong direction, homie.
Get out of there.
100%.
Just FYI. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but amen.
No, I mean, I completely agree with you. And for us, we've had to evolve. You know, we used to take for granted that most of the people that were taking our classes already had some experience with firearms. You know, were raised with guns and things like that. That's not the case at all anymore. I would say the vast majority of our students these days, especially with the whole COVID, George Floyd, election year, like the trifecta of what's been happening in our industry, we have people who have never touched a gun before. We've got people who were anti-gun,
Yep.
vehemently anti-gun until very recently, which I freaking love that. I love that. We've had people from all walks of life. You know, one of the things that we've had come up in several of our classes, we've had people who have asked us during our legal presentation, when is it appropriate to use lethal force on law enforcement in self-defense? And for
It's not a question we got 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's not a question that we had a couple years ago. And that's the first time that happened, that was like, what did you say? You know, here in Ohio, it is unlawful to resist and illegal arrest. So even if you're being unlawfully arrested, it's illegal for you to resist that arrest. And so we've had to have that conversation. And so for me, you know, there's a couple different ways you can approach that kind of question. When you have people like that taking this class, you know, that's a stupid question. Obviously, you can never shoot at the cops. You know, what's the matter with you? Or you can pull them aside and say, why did you ask that question? And kind of figure out what's going on. And what we found is that, you know, a lot of our students really actually believe that they're being hunted and targeted by the police. I had one lady tell me that the police have quotas of black people that they're, you know, supposed to kill.
Jesus Christ.
You know, like she believed it. You know, it was absolutely 100% true to her, for her, you know, her world, you know. And so it gave me an opportunity to have a real conversation with her and introduce a totally different perspective. Because again, she's in her echo chamber. And for people like that, I have empathy. You know, I completely disagree with that. Obviously, I think that you're wrong, but I have empathy because you're completely surrounded in this echo chamber of people who are, you know, in just reinforcing this idea that you're a victim. And that's why she was there to get her concealed carry licenses, because she believed that she was going to get pulled over and a police officer was going to shoot and kill her. And she's not the only one. It's been something that we've had to deal with quite a bit. We've had quite a few people who have asked that same question in a couple different ways, and we've had to have these conversations with people. And like I said, we can bury our heads and be like, "You fucking retard! Like, how can you? You know, why can?"
No, you know what? That's not why I'm burying my head. Can you imagine living that way?
Oh my God, yeah. And that's
God,
where that empathy comes from. You know, that's what I said. Like, my heart goes out to these people who really believe that's true, and my heart goes out to the law enforcement who have to deal with.
Yeah.
You know, like, so for example, I was talking with Bill, my partner. You know, he was a cop for 16 years, and he gets fired up because for 16 years he took pride in the fact that he did not use excessive force. He went out of his way to treat everyone, regardless of the color of their skin, no matter what they were doing to him. He treated them he held his head high. He had integrity. He treated them with respect. And regardless of whether they deserved it or not, like, that's something that he stood for. That and for him, that's what law enforcement is. And the cops that he knows, the cops that he associates with, that's the kind of men that they are, and the kind of women that they are. And to be, you know, targeted in this way and be accused of being a racist or being accused of being a bigot, he takes offense to that. Like, he takes exception to that, and rightfully so. But at the same time, like, I'm empathizing with people who really believe this to be true and don't have anyone in their life who gives them a different perspective. And so for us, we've had that opportunity to be that different perspective and to tell people that, you know, and I had one student who said, I get it that there are some good cops out there, that they're not all bad. And I'm like, you have that backwards, you know?
Yeah.
The vast majority of people who are in law enforcement are amazing, you know, are amazing people who are out there, you know, because for them, they are serving and protecting it as a calling, you know, for them to be out there and protect our community, to put their life on the line. And, you know, and the fact of the matter is, bad apples exist, I guess, you know, that's a real thing. But for the most part, police do police themselves. They don't want bad apples working for most police departments. You know, they typically get rid of people who are liabilities. You know, if you have an excessive force, or is, you know, everything's caught on body camera and stuff. They don't put up with stuff like that. And so, man, it's a big mess. And I know we are going down a rabbit hole here, but to answer your question, we have really had a diverse crowd in our classes as of late, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I love it. I freaking love it. I love the fact that the Second Amendment is getting this kind of audience right now. And, you know, I think there's a meme going around. I think it was Colin, how do you say his last name? Noir?
Yeah, Noir.
Yeah.
Colin Noir posted that thing the other day that said, you know, basically that if you went out and bought a gun during the last couple months, you are saying that the Second Amendment is the most important issue right now today, because the government and the police are not going to be able to protect you. You need to take responsibility for yourself. So it's opened up a lot of those doors, a lot of those conversations where previously we didn't have access.
So, and that's maybe how we can get this thing back on track. I mean, a lot of folks are having discussions right now as to where is our culture going and where is our politics going? Can this dumpster fire even be saved? And man, I think that introducing somebody to firearms is a great way to turn this train around. And I am so overjoyed. And if I'm optimistic about anything, it's the millions of brand new first-time gun owners that we've seen in the last several months. Because I make a joke, but I mean it. I'm serious. Like, as someone who's an advocate for firearms, an instructor, an ambassador for the lifestyle, I feel like I'm walking around with like one of those trench coats on, and I'm like, you know, hey, you want a little liberty? Like the first one's free. Can I loan you some ammo? Can I take you to the range? Can I just help you out with your first steps? Let's just go have fun and shoot some steel. And just planting that seed, water it a little bit. That's how personal responsibility and individualism and understanding that each and every life is a unique divine spark that deserves self-defense and deserves protection. That's how we can turn this thing around. So if I'm optimistic, I think that at some point this pendulum's going to swing back a little bit, and all the millions of brand new gun owners are going to be a big part of it.
Yep.
So it's interesting that these conversations, whether they're happening in Ohio or Texas or California or New York or wherever, they all center around a couple key points. My phone is ringing off the hook these days, right? And 2/3 or better of the people on the other end are scared.
Sure.
The conversation starts with fear, right? Some are afraid of the cops. Some are afraid of the rioters. Some are afraid of the protesters. Some are just outright afraid. But fear is motivating them. And on one hand, it's good for business, but I hate that fear would be a motivating factor for somebody to start this. I would want it to be an act of self-determination and self-guidance and perseverance, etc. But I want to talk to you guys a little bit, because I know for sure you have your, the Google machine knows you're a firearms instructor, and therefore some number is associated with you that is ringing right now, and there are scared people on the other end of it. What are you guys doing to kind of level set folks in the early onset as they come to you and say, hey, I need you to, literally the phone calls are like, I need to get an AR-15 because BLM is coming to the suburbs.
Sure. Yeah. I don't know I don't remember where it was, but there was a video that got tons of traction where some knucklehead with a microphone stuck it in front of some other knucklehead. And he said, basically, it was during a protest, I think out in Portland, and he was like, we're coming to the suburbs next. Right.
Yep.
And then like that next week, all these protests were announced in all these suburbs in our communities. And there was I live across the street from a police station, and there was a protest that happened. They couldn't do it on that side of the street. So they were literally on my sidewalk in between my tree lawn and my front yard was where the protest was. So, I mean, this is something that is happening. Now, the vast majority of those protests are very peaceful. They were making their voices heard. They had their signs, they had their bullhorns, and there was no drama. It was fine. But they saw that clip of that guy saying, we're coming to your neighborhood next, after seeing that 5-year-old that got burned alive in his house because protesters were blocking, emergency medical services and firefighters from getting, to their house. So that's an isolated incident that got national coverage, and all of a sudden everyone goes crazy. And so, yeah, everyone in the suburbs came running into our gun store and literally just cleaned us out in one day. It was absolute just anarchy in our gun store. And you're right, our phone was ringing off the hook, and people were looking for guidance and training. And so for us, part of the answer was to cast that net as wide as possible. We had 32 classes, I think, scheduled for the year. We upped that to 52. So we've got 52 classes on the schedule this year. So we're casting that net as wide as possible. And we have totally redesigned the way that we begin and finish our classes, where we want to empower people. We don't want you to be scared. We don't want you to be living in fear and be paranoid. We want to empower you with the mindset, the skills, and the equipment required for you to have self-reliance and to be responsible for your own personal security. We got t-shirts made and everything that said, save yourself. Like, be responsible for your own personal security. And we just started preaching that message. And so part of that personal, responsibility is that training, and understanding that it is a responsibility. If you have decided that owning a firearm is the answer to a perceived threat or a perceived infraction on your liberty, or whatever the case may be, that training has to come alongside it, and that it can't just be enough to buy the gun. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's kind of how we approached it.
No, it's basically, it's kind of the same thing. Empowerment, right?
Right.
So I'm doing a thing especially with privates where I'm doing I call it a new client intake call, right? We're talking for 10 or 15 minutes on the phone, and I'm trying to figure out what the heck's in your brain before I meet you at a lonely gun range all by myself. And, we find out that we're not simpatico or something like that. And the interesting thing is whoever you are right now, if you are the person that believes that law enforcement is the problem and that, there's a quota on certain races or certain individuals, you're scared. If you're my mom's best friend who lives 10 blocks away from me, you're scared. Everybody is scared. Every decision that is being made is starting with fear first. And it's at some point, it has to switch from fear to personal responsibility, to empowerment, to an act of love. We as human beings, we want to believe that, we can take control. We hate the idea of losing control, right? We don't like the idea that our existence on the grand cosmos is it's like that. It comes and goes as far as history, et cetera, et cetera. We want control, and people look to lethal means as just this extra little layer of control that they can place in whatever situation they're entering. And I've almost found that of late, I'm kind of backing people a step or two down from the ledge, maybe even to my detriment, right? To my own business detriment, where it'd be real easy to tell them, yeah, you got to buy a rifle, a pistol, a shotgun, all the ammo you can buy. I don't give a shit if it costs you 3 cents a round. And you got to take this class and this class and this class and this class and this class. And I'm sitting over here saying, hey, man, do you have any med training at all? Is there an ounce of potable water in your house besides what comes out of the spigot? Do you have any kind of plan for fire or for personal emergencies or for, and I just had this conversation with a gentleman the other night who he literally wrote me and said, make me a list. I'll buy whatever you tell me to buy and I'll take every class you tell me to take. And I was like, how about stop the bleed? How about, there was none of there. It was such, like you said, tunnel vision when you were talking about your situation before. There gets to be this tunnel vision where, gun is solution to problem.
Right.
And they get so tunnel visioned in. And I found that I've had to break that, and I'm sure you guys have had to do that as well.
Well, and I think that's not a new problem. I think that's always been the plight of firearms instructors.
That's fair.
Yeah. That 99.9% of people go out and buy guns and stick it, in their drawer or whatever and think that they're good to go. Maybe they take a concealed carry class and they check that box and then they stick it in a holster and they walk around in public around your family and mine with absolutely no training and think that they're ready for a gunfight. Yeah. And so it's something I think we've always struggled with. But now it's like we have people who are actually listening, and if we continue to just approach it like we always have, we're going to have the same results. And so, for us, we've been like, all right, let's reinvent the wheel here. Let's really approach it differently. And and I'll tell you, we've been successful, but I think it's because the environment has changed and we've responded to it. The other day, I think we had a little three-way conference call that we were on with a couple of the instructors, and we were talking about how whatever we're doing at the end of our beginner entry-level basic pistol safety course is working because we have people signing up for our advanced classes. We got people who are buying into this idea that you're right, I need to be prepared. I need to be responsible for my own safety. And it's changing the way that they're looking at like life in general. Like you said, fire, stop the bleed. We preach all that stuff. It's a way that you view the world. It's got nothing to do with firearms or being pro gun or whatever. It's, do you want to be self-reliant? And do you want to be empowered with that gusto that like, I'm going to take care of problems as they arise and be prepared for them before they happen. And we want to build a culture. We want to build a tribe of people that subscribe to that. And I love that our team, speaks the same language, and I feel like we're continuing to spread that message far and wide. So
that's awesome. Well, you guys have done what always happens when we get like-minded trainers on here. And we took our hour to an hour and a half show, and we're pushing on the 2-hour mark right now. And there's stuff that we haven't even.
What's the record?
Oh, you want to go for the record?
Oh, I don't know.
Not when I've got to get up at 5 a.m. to get my kids up and ready for school.
Just leave it running, DJ. Just leave the soundboard running like you're a DJ in New York City, and it'll be fine. No, all that means is that there needs to be a part deux, or maybe trois, or I don't know. Somebody save me for my French, but we need to do more episodes. So real quick, I want to give you guys an opportunity to just answer some basic, like, round them up at the end kind of questions. And one of them being, Mike, this is a setup. What's your favorite class that you've taken as a student of late for both of you guys?
Favorite class that I've taken as a student? Man, that's rough. I mean, so the Range Master Instructor Development course is fresh on my mind. And that's got to be up there, man. We talked a little bit after the class. It's not what I expected going in. I had these preconceptions, and it wasn't that, but it was fantastic for all the right reasons. So, I mean, maybe just because it's freshest in my mind, we just completed that two weeks ago, something like that. Always be a student. The blend of being around a lot of people who are very highly skilled. Man, we had some shooters and we had some teachers in that class with us, Kent. So being around that caliber of people.
Tim Kelly. Solution. Oh.
Tim Kelly's my hero. That's who I
Tim
want to
Kelly,
be. When I grow up, I want to be Tim Kelly.
Tim was probably in the top 20 of best looking people in that class, I would say. Somewhere in there. But being around that caliber of people, and just being able to learn from them and learn with them, and just the unique blend of the shooting instruction as well as the adult learning theory. I know I walked away a better shooter. I walked away a better instructor. And what more can you ask for?
And our beards found each other, which is
man. If I go a week without seeing you, I'm going to be really sad. So we're going to have to do this.
We're going to have to do like
when you guys kiss, does it stick like Velcro?
I don't know where my beard ends and his begins. And
they don't kiss on the mouth.
I was going to say, who said anything about the mouth?
Oh, shut it. Thank God for that explicit content button on these things.
Yeah, you got a red delay or something? Delay button? Yeah.
Beep.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's staying. I'm just going to have to mark it as not safe for family.
Okay. Demonetized.
Yeah.
I'll throw out another one there. Maybe just because it's something different that I've done compared to anything else. Dave Spalding's Handgun Combatives, his Vehicle Combatives class was just out of this world. I've taken classes before. You were there, I know.
That was cool.
I've taken classes before, some advanced CCW type classes where there always was a vehicle component, how to open up the door, how to make sure that it's not going to crash in on your leg when it bounces back and you got that adrenaline rush, a little bit of that stuff. But having an entire weekend of being in and around vehicles and what's covered and what's not.
And the robots.
That was really cool. Yeah.
Chasing you around the car, having to engage it. That was cool.
Yeah. So that's by far probably, a unique class that I've taken that I picked up a whole bunch of skills that I apply every day, not even being around vehicles. What about you, Scotty? What's some of your favorite classes?
Man, I really enjoyed, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Rich Nance from Wartech. I did his 2-day. He's changed the name of it a couple times. It was his Extreme Close Quarters Combat class. That class absolutely kicked my ass. I ended up getting teamed up with a Krav Maga instructor who owns his own martial arts studio, and he was my partner the whole weekend, and he just thrashed me. It was tons of strikes, elbow strikes, knee strikes, get fighting for your gun, trying to protect your gun as they're trying to take your gun away. It was so physical. you know, a lot of times you get into these classes where it's theoretical, you know, where you're like, okay, so cover your head and protect yourself in case they're hitting you. Well, in this class, he's hitting you and you have to protect your head. So that class was really a lot of fun. I've taken several ACQC classes like Ella Fritz, you know, I've taken his class, and he's an amazing instructor. Really enjoyed that. But for whatever reason, that class with Rich Nance really sticks out to me as one of my favorite classes. I would probably say that up there is the adaptive pistol class that Handgun Combatives puts on. I think as far as a useful class of being able to manipulate the gun left-handed, one-handed, injured hand drills, you know, your hand's taped up with a, you know, you got a tennis ball in your hand, it's all duct taped shut, and you got to clear a double feed with your left hand. Proper technique for how to do that stuff, fighting through whatever situation you're in, getting the gun back in the fight and fighting through and being victorious in that class. That class was lots of fun. But the class that was probably the one that was most, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. It was the most important class I've probably ever taken, was the Handgun Combatives Instructor Certification course that I took last year with Tim Kelly and a bunch of dudes. I mean, there was just a bunch of dudes. Dan Brady was in that class. Bunch of just amazing instructors, guys from all over the country. And it was from start to finish, you had to work for every single inch of ground, and there was no guarantee you were going to pass. And there's this collective anxiety, which I think really brought us together as a team. There was 19 of us in that class, and to come out the other side as one of the 19 who completed the Handgun Combatives class, like every one of us feel like we earned that class. And we learned so much as far as adult learning theory and the method to teaching someone how to shoot a gun, not just as an intro level, but how to take them from that intro level to that next level and the next level beyond, and continuing on. That class was it was absolutely one of the most important classes I've ever been a part of, and I'm really proud of that class. Tim Kelly did win top shot in that class, in case anybody was wondering. I think I took third. He beat me by a full second in our qualifiers. So that dude's a monster. He's a machine. So, but I love that class. That class was awesome.
That's one of the ones I let get away. I really should have applied and tried to even do that, and just didn't do it. And I regret it. But you guys had an awesome experience out there, and to hear him talk about it and to hear you talk about it, it's really neat.
Yeah, we're looking forward. We got a I don't know what he's calling it. I don't know if it's an advanced instructor course, but it's coming up next month. So we're getting the gang back together. All of the Handgun Combatives instructors are coming from all over the country and getting back together next month. And it's going to be 4 days of awesome instruction. And man, I'm psyched about it. I'm really looking forward to it.
I know where there's a real cheap Airbnb at the worst part of Dayton.
In the worst part of Dayton.
If you guys are looking for the absolute most dangerous Airbnb, hey, I know where you can
didn't
find
get
it.
murdered.
No, that's because I had Tim.
The odds are only 1 in 119.
Yeah, well, I don't even have to carry a handgun. I just carry a Tim. I have a floodlight with a Tim in it.
Tim does his 5s and 25s, man, and you're good to go.
Yeah, no, he was all over it. The poor little neighbor kid came by with a newspaper subscription, and he got fucking ambushed. It was
drawn on.
The whole thing.
Yep.
No.
I mean, wouldn't you shit if you went to go draw your pistol, and as you grabbed that handle and pulled upward, Tim just materialized out of your holster like thunderwear and a knife hand, and that's all you needed?
Mm-hmm.
I'd be considerably safer, I assure you. So the next question is, what was the thing that most developed your teaching style? Oh, look at Mike. Mike's good.
Oh, am I going first again?
Yeah.
No, you just your eyes lit up.
I'll go first.
Yeah.
So I mean, for me, it was my background in ministry. I mean, I'd been teaching. I worked in several different churches. You know, there was opportunities for me to stand up in front of groups of 5,000 people, and times where I was in a small group of 10 people, and having to adapt and change and make sure that you're being heard and engaging. I hate monologues. I like dialogues, and so so that my past and my history coming into instruction, I think I had a pretty good foundation just from experience. I mean, it wasn't necessarily all natural. I certainly failed a lot and learned along the way, but I mean, I did that for 12 years before I got into firearms instruction. I think that one of the things that I thought was maybe groundbreaking for me was when I went to the Tactical Defense Institute for the first time. And I think there's 32 people in that class, and there were 16 instructors, which seemed a little high. And every single one of those instructors spoke the same language. They taught things the same. They were on the same page. And like I said, they can be maybe there are some different things I would do differently if I worked there or whatever. But I mean, they have it down cold. Their class is down cold. And I've actually taken a couple of their classes multiple times, and every one of them was exactly the same as it was before. And I know that maybe we said earlier, we might have been hinted that that was a bad thing, but there was something that I took from that was that you're never as strong by yourself as you are in a team of people who are on the same page as you. And so that's kind of where it started for me. Was I wanted to build a team of people, because I knew that if I had guys like Mike and Dave and Bill and Rob and whoever else ends up joining the Gunset team, we would be stronger together than I could ever be by myself. I never wanted to be the Scott show. I wanted it to be the Gunset family, and so that's probably the next thing that I would point to was maybe an aha moment for me, was being down there and just being part of that experience and being like, I want to take that and take the best parts of that and recreate that.
That's awesome, man. What about you, Mike?
I was thinking about it here, and I don't know how to put words to it, so I apologize if I'm going to ramble, but I'm going to ramble.
We're going to set that record.
Please do. So when I became a formal instructor in 2007, and I've been giving people hints and taking friends out to the range before that and trying to help people along and share things that I had learned, but I was certainly not an instructor at that point. When I first became an instructor over 13 years ago, it probably took me too long to realize this. I'll admit it. One of my failings was I'm like, okay, I've got my course of fire. I put all this time into it. I've figured out, I've practiced, I've rehearsed. I know how I want to teach a skill. I know exactly what I want to say. Every word is chosen precisely for a reason. And I'm going to stand up in front of 25 people. And then I realize, wait a minute, why don't you get it? No. Did you not hear what I said? Like, no, you're still doing it wrong. Why? So my point is figuring out how to make a connection with individuals was really the light bulb moment, and what that turning point was for me to go from, a lesson plan reciter to an instructor. And that's something that we can all work on and get better at every single day. But, when folks come to class, as soon as they come in the door, I want them to feel welcome, and I want to chat them up a little bit. We're a little bit of inside baseball here, but I want to try to get to know them. Where are you coming from? Do you have kids? What do you like to do? And I'm kind of filing all that stuff away so that later on in the day, maybe somebody's struggling with target transitions. I can pull on, a word picture from baseball or something that we were chatting about at lunch. So just
to jump in here for a second, Dave Spalding in our instructor class, one of the things that he impressed upon us was the difference between an instructor and a teacher. And his and maybe semantics are off here. I don't necessarily agree with all of it, but one of the things he said was an instructor is someone who can regurgitate information. An instructor is someone who can take a lesson plan and throw it at you. A teacher is someone who can inspire you. And he really implored us to be teachers. So just to kind of pile on that.
So I wasn't there. I didn't take that class. Make sure you tell Dave I said it better, though.
I will. Yeah. You're saying the same thing. And yeah, I agree with you.
Dave is drinking Crown Royal and watching right now, I'm sure.
I'm sure he is. He's probably taking notes.
He's really not.
Things to yell at me about later.
So. There you go. So finally, we're going to ask you guys to pick a charity and we're going to donate our T-shirt sales for the next little bit to that charity.
Very cool.
Fantastic, man.
So pick a charity. Scotty, Mike, charity.
How about, I'm a big fan of, and I've worked in the past, we've done some corporate stuff at work with the Fisher House. I don't know if you're familiar with the Fisher House, but it's a fantastic organization here in the Dayton area. We have the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and Fisher House has a location there, where what they do is they provide housing and support for families of wounded veterans who are undergoing care, so that maybe families can't afford being put up in a hotel for weeks or sometimes even months in order to be around their loved ones as they get the care that they need. So Fisher House really helps out with that and puts them up, and I think that they just do a fantastic job. I'm a big believer in the Fisher House.
Awesome. So you heard it here. If you dudes buy some shirts and dudettes, or maybe the lovely coffee mugs or stickers or, whatever else TJ put up on our web store, the proceeds of the Teespring orders will go to the Fisher House for, what are we doing, 2 weeks, TJ?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Cool.
Thank you for doing that. That's amazing.
That's really awesome. That's awesome.
And you guys are running a sale on 9mm ammo. They email Kent at Green Mountain, right?
Yeah.
.com. I think
Kent
it's like $9.99 for 50 rounds.
I heard.
Yeah.
It's Spear Lawman, right? Isn't that what it was?
You
You left out the festival. It's $999. We're on that. We're on that cheaper than dirt price plan.
That's right.
Oh,
During all the craziness, I'm pulling out like 8-year-old steel case stuff from the back of the closet. I'm like, is this how my rifle gets the Rona? Is running steel case through it? I don't know, but we're giving it a go. Got to do what you got to do.
Things have to happen. What can we do? So, man, dudes, this has been an awesome show. You guys are odd. Oh, look at you! Are you flexing on the boards right now?
Just flexing right now.
Ready?
That's it. Oh, such critical duty.
You just dump them on your bed. Heavy. Just Scrooge McDuck around all your ammo.
Or
yeah, I don't know about you guys, but this is going to go great in audio only. I'm just saying.
TJ, stop being a professional. God damn it! Stop knowing things.
You're the one grunting. I don't want to hear it.
Oh my goodness.
Grunting does come across really well in audio.
Tater. All right. It's been an awesome show. Thank you guys so much for the investment of your time. We always say time's the most valuable commodity, and you guys have given our listeners 2 hours. So thank you very much for that. If you're in the Ohio area and you're looking for training, go find these guys at Gunset. I am not an alumni yet, but I will be, because they seem very like-minded and they're cool. And we had dinner together and they were nice to me. And Mike was a good training partner in a class. So always a student, right? So when you see another school sending their cadre to squared away training, that's usually a very good clue that they're on the right path and that there's somebody to be trusted. So even though I'm not an alumni yet, I would go ahead and say, go train with these guys, right?
We'd love to have you.
There's no reason not to. And if you're not in the Ohio or Pennsylvania area, hit any one of us up so that we can help you find squared away training, please, because it's out there. There's no reason to go to tacticaldipshituniversity.com and try to find a gun trainer. Just email slingledpodcast@gmail.com. And we'll help you out, because there's good resources all over this country, and there's guys and girls who believe and think very similarly to what we do and can square you away. And we're coming up on 50 episodes on this show, and like 30 something of them have been squared away firearms trainers. So that's also a clue, right? So look back through that stuff. That being said, if you're interested in training with me, greenmountaindefense.com/training, I'd be humbled and honored if you'd invest your time. Money is one thing, but time is the most important. And I thank all those of you who have come out here recently and done just that. It's been an awesome training season, and we're looking to round it out. And listen, things are weird, right? Like there's no doing a firearms and training podcast and not acknowledging that things are a little weird right now. Be good to each other. Take care of each other. Pay attention. Get the hell off of social media. Stop arguing all the time. God forbid, go take a walk with your family. Get away from the news. I don't care which side of it you're watching. This stuff's really, really starting to beat down on people's mental health. And we love y'all, and we want you to be around. So just take care of yourselves. And TJ, will you please do your thing and be the support ginger that you are and make all the beepity boops and read all the ads and do all that fancy stuff?
I am more than happy to, buddy.
Thanks, man.
So Mike, Scotty, it's been fantastic having you. Guys, there's been so much that we've talked about in these last 2 hours and so much more that we can cover. We're certainly going to have you guys get scheduled to come back on the show so we can continue this conversation and touch on some of the points that we didn't necessarily get a chance to reach during this time. So once again, thank you guys for joining us. And, we consider you friends of the show, and you have an open invitation to come back, hopefully in the very near future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
While we're on the topic, folks, it is something that I have started to take a lot more seriously in my own life, and something that I want to, if I can contribute anything to the group, not being the professional firearms instructor on the podcast here, take care of yourself as well. Physical fitness is vitally important. I'm happy to report that, in the last 2.5 months, you haven't seen me posting a whole lot on my personal social media accounts, Instagram, Facebook, and my own YouTube channel. That's because I've been taking my fitness, or my physical fitness and my physical health, all that much more seriously. Get checked out by your doctor. Go get that blood test. Go get that blood work. Don't fall asleep at the wheel when it comes to figuring out exactly how this machine filled with blood and organs that we call a body is working. And that means getting off the couch while you're getting away from social media. Fill that time with something more productive. Join a gym, join a running group, start bicycling. For me, it's been jiu-jitsu, and because of that and dieting and discipline, I can report that I'm down 30 pounds in the last 2.5 months. So thank you. Thank you, Scotty, for applauding that.
That's awesome, man. Congratulations.
See, that's support right there.
Yeah, I'm proud of you.
You're down 30 pounds because you put the corgi down when you weighed yourself this time.
He only weighs 15. Thank you very much.
Lying mother.
I can't help it. He's so fucking cute. Anyway, but I'm also happy to report that, my son and I will be competing in our first jiu-jitsu tournament next month. So September 19th, we're going to head to Kentucky, and hopefully we'll bring home some medals.
The gold.
Hopefully. It's our first one, man. It's all about my son, but daddy's got to step in and show him how it's done too sometimes.
That's cool, man.
But yeah, so it's going to be a good time, folks. But please take care of yourselves. Get out there. Your physical fitness and your health and your family depend on you to take care of yourself as well. To Kent's point about social media and the media in general, I'd be willing to bet that a vast majority of the outrage you're seeing today is from people who are allowing themselves to be programmed by the mainstream media. I challenge you all, if you are one of those people that is at home, that is truly frustrated and depressed and anxious over the state that our nation is in, if you turn the television off for 2 solid weeks, no media, no Fox News, no CNN, no NPR, none of that bullshit, you cut that out of your life completely for 2 weeks. Limit your social media time, because that's another form of mainstream media control. Try to be a contributor to somebody else's life. If you're going to get on social media, make a post that's going to brighten somebody's day. Reach out to a friend you haven't talked to, and that's it. Tell me you're not happier in those 2 weeks. You'll surprise yourself. But I'm going to get off my soapbox. So, folks, of course, we appreciate the live chat. All of you that are tuned into the show, we love you all. Thank you for posting your questions and comments. You can also find us on our Facebook page at the Sling'N Led Podcast. We'll take your comments and questions there as well. Kent and I both monitor that, as well as our email. If you'd rather email us, slingandledpodcast@gmail.com. You're going to buy gun stuff anyway, so why not use our affiliate links? Using that gets us a little bit of scratch on the side, helps support the channel and the show, and we greatly appreciate it. You can find all those affiliate links by going to greenmountaindefense.com/affiliates-links, and those links are, of course, copied down in the description. Links for Gunset Training Group, as well as their charity of choice, is also going to be listed down in the description of this video, as well as posted in the description on your favorite podcast player. Of course, if you missed a live show, we are on, as I mentioned, on all of your favorite podcast players, Apple, Google, Spotify, you name it, we're probably there. So if you by chance miss us on YouTube, you're more than welcome to subscribe to us there. We always love the support from any arena that we possibly can. Of course, we want to give a shout out to Right On Optics. Visit rightonoptics.com to check out everything that they have to offer, from red dots, binoculars, variable power optics, all that you might need for long range shooting, hunting, tactical stuff, you name it, they've got it. Fantastic company, and Kent and I are proud to be pro staff members. Also, we want to give a shout out to holdmyguns.org. Sarah Albrecht, who is one of the co-founders of the Hold My Guns org charity, is a fantastic person. We've had her and Genevieve Jones on the show, of course. We invite you guys to go contribute to that as well. You can find them on Kent. What's the word? What's the website? GoFundMe. That's it. See, when you don't interrupt me, I forget it. Please go find them on GoFundMe at HMG.org, or you can visit them at holdmyguns.org on your favorite web browser. That's all we have for this week, folks. We appreciate your attendance and your participation, as well as your support. Until we see each other again, God bless you all. Take care of each other and get out and shoot.